Okay, so we're here with Miss Singleton, Miss Gerardis, Mr. Farlow and Mr. Viera, and the noise that you hear in the background is us having a coffee whilst we discuss the HSC performance criteria. And what we thought we'd do is pull apart specifically what this assessment criteria means in the context of your performances. So when they mark HSC, they're looking at 4 key areas, and the areas are demonstration of technical skill, stylistic interpretation of the chosen repertoire or the piece of music that you choose, a sense of musical expression and sensitivity to the chosen repertoire, and finally demonstration of solo and or ensemble techniques. And when we look at the marking criteria, basically you have the 4 or the 5 boxes where you've got the 17 to 20 or the A grade, and then the other ones go down respectively. But effectively what we're looking at is what do you have to do here to get the marks over here, and at what level. So maybe we'll start with demonstration of technical skill and just jump in whenever you've got something to say. Miss Singleton, start us off with technical skills. So what are they saying when they mean technical skills? Specifically, what are they looking at?
So when they're looking at technical skills, they're looking at how you play your instrument. What technique are you using? For instance, if you're a singer, what type of breathing technique? Are you using the correct breathing technique? If you're a piano player, are you using the correct fingering when you're playing the piece? Guitarist, the same thing. So it starts off there, and then it goes, because in the 17 to 20 box, it says highly developed technical skills. That means how fluent, which you can see, it says fluency is one of the words, intonation, are you in tune, have you absolute control over your instruments, you can use a wide range of techniques in your playing, you can coordinate your hands, or if it's with your voice, you can coordinate your phrasing appropriately and things like that.
So what would, just for contrast, right, what wouldn't be highly developed? So what would be, can we ask you, Miss, what would be singing where they're not demonstrating really good technical skill? What are some of the things that you'd be hearing going, okay, that's not a highly developed level of technical skill?
Well, just following on from Miss Singleton, it's definitely all linked to the breathing. If you're a singer, it's all about where do you breathe and how well you use your diaphragm, especially with if you've got any kind of note, high, long, they're doing legato or staccato phrases, they have to be supporting it with their breathing.
So what happens if someone's singing and they're running out of breath? Does that show a lack of technical skill there?
Lack of technical skill in terms of they're not using their diaphragm and they're breathing properly. So that's exactly right. They're running out of breath. They can't hit the note, so they're falling a bit flat. And sometimes they over push, which again is not using their breathing properly, so they are too sharp as well. So especially that there's a really big difference between you want to sing softly and you are running out of breath. Yes. And that shows a lack of control.
So you can still sing softly,
yes,
but very gently with
yes,
a lot of breath control.
Sometimes singing softly is almost harder than singing loudly because of that amount of control in the diaphragm and with the vocal cords as well. And that takes a lot of time to develop and to practice. So with a singer, I think you know straight away, have they been practicing? Do they know how to use their voice and their techniques with their breathing? Because they understand how much breath to let out for this one. And also with their breathing, do they breathe in the middle of phrases? Do they breathe in the middle of words? That's not showing a developed technical skill for singing.
So what about when someone, staying with the singers, when someone tries to sing really loudly or to get more volume out and they haven't got enough breath support, what tends to happen to the singers there?
It tends to happen that they want to sing loud, but because they haven't got the breath, it doesn't come out at all and it falls flat, and then they can't hold it for as long as they want. So it's just a very short note that doesn't really go anywhere.
Right, yeah.
So
they can't project it as much?
They can't project it, and it comes out really quietly, and there's no contrast with the dynamic, and because it comes out quietly, it's not getting the effect, that loudness that they want to achieve.
So in contrast, someone that is highly developed, when they sing a loud note, it's well supported,
yes,
and because it's well supported, they can keep the note strong,
yes,
it's the
stay
same,
on pitch,
it projects well, it's not wavering. Yep. Okay.
And something else with the singing also, if we're talking about technique, is also how well they move between their chest and their head voice.
Yeah.
Is it a very seamless, flawless kind of movement where their voice is just one big kind of scale and that they can move between low and high notes, or is it a really big effort for them to move to their head voice and how strong that head voice is? Because we normally find chest voice is quite strong because we speak in the chest voice, but when they go to their head voice, it's an immediate downgrade of power, fluency, projection, and
because
that shows
technically
Yes.
that hasn't been developed yet.
that's right, and they haven't been practicing, or they are. It might be connected to their confidence as well, but it's more about they don't know how to access their head voice,
Right.
and so it's much less strength than the chest voice.
So a bit of what you're describing there is that technical facility. Now, I don't know if it's in Italian as well, but facile in Spanish means ease or like ease of use.
Yes.
Is it like that in Italian as well?
Yes, yeah.
Yep. So if you think of how easy is it for you to do something that is very
Yes.
difficult or very challenging, that's kind of what that is trying to capture there. So technical facility, how easy is it? Do you really have to struggle to get it out? Or at the highly developed technical level, you're able to do it and it seems effortless.
Yeah.
It's not that it is effortless, but it seems
It's
effortless.
Like with the singing, like if they want to do like a little melismic kind of scale all the way down, can they control that pitch, or does it kind of they just go for it and it's all over the place?
Right.
And even with piano players, like doing a little trill, or guitar player trying to
Yeah.
do some little scaling passages, like you would know. So like it's hard to do them, and you have to practice quite a bit.
So maybe Mr. Farlow on the guitar, for example, if let's say you're playing a passage on the guitar and you want nice, neat notes, what would highly developed look like? Or what are some of the things that you'd expect to hear if for someone that's really getting on top of it as opposed to someone that's really struggling with it?
Well, as you said about developing that technical facility, there should be that degree of ease to it, and there should be fluency in sound. So you really shouldn't hear the player muting strings as they progress through that scale. There should be nice, even tones, and obviously they should be keeping that rhythmicity as they progress through that scale. So if they're falling out of time, they're obviously falling down in terms of that technical skill.
Yep. And so what you're describing there as well is also the articulation, which means how neat and clean every single one of your notes are.
Yes.
Not just like a flurry of notes where a lot of them are muddled up and you might start and finish on the right note, but the rest are kind of mucked up in there. So it's really looking at that articulation. And what does fluency, like if we're going to describe, what's a definition of fluency?
Smooth something is, I
Yeah.
guess, and how it eases between transitions and sections.
Yeah. So how fluent or how fluid,
Yeah.
if you think of like water pouring out of a tap, it comes out very easily and effortlessly. And at the top bracket, your technique, the technical skills are fluent and they're easy. Your articulation is nice and clean, and the intonation, which means how in tune you are, which applies to singers and any of the wind instruments as well, and violin players and so on. It's how accurately in tune you are. Sorry, please.
Can I just, before we move on to the next point, that is why that is the first point in the assessment criteria.
Right.
It's the most important.
Right.
Technical skills, that's why it's the first one. Because it's the most important thing that the examiner, there's 4 important things, but it's on purpose that it's the first
top one.
Yeah.
And so if you can't do those things with a piece of music that you're choosing, if your technical skills aren't fluent and then you're not articulate with them, then it by default means that these following 3 points get more and more challenging because you haven't got the level of technical skill required to be able to do that.
That's exactly
I
right.
think too, your piece needs to have a level of versatility as
Yes.
well,
Yep.
particularly with an instrument like the guitar, where there are so many different ways to play the instrument. It would really show your technical ability if you're moving from strumming a rhythm to picking a passage and so on. So you really need to pick a piece that does show your versatility as a musician, which is then going to highlight your technical ability and the ease at which you can play your instrument.
Yeah. So let's take one example where you have a piece of music that you can play extremely well, but technically it's not showing a highly developed technical level of skill. So let's say you play it really well, but it's not showing anything that's really dramatic there. So it might be a song where it doesn't go very high or very low, the range is quite small, or it might be, say, a piece of guitar music where you just basically strum chords for the whole thing with a similar pattern. So you play it really well, but it's not showing. Is that going to get you into the highly developed bracket?
So song choice is very important.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Song choice is
So you
extremely
want to be
important.
showing a versatile song that you can control.
Right.
Yes.
So what happens if you choose a piece of music that does have very highly developed levels of technical skill, but you can't accurately perform it with fluency and with facility? Does that affect your overall mark as well?
Yeah, of course it does, and it depends on the degree of how much control you have over the piece. If you have no control over the piece, you're probably better off doing something that you could do really well.
Yeah.
But if you're able to manage to do, most of it, or a good chunk of it really well, but there might be some areas where it's not perfect, you might still be able to get like 17. It just depends on the amount of control you have over it.
Right.
But if it's really messy, there's no point
So
you're
it's better
doing it
to
at all.
do something slightly easier, but have
That you can absolutely
total
get.
control over
Yes.
it. Then try it. Let's say for a singer, try a Whitney Houston song and mess it up
Yeah,
completely.
you're better
Better
off
not to
no.
do it and sing something slightly easier and have
That you can do. Yep. All right, so let's move on to the second point. That was demonstration of technical skills. The second point is stylistic interpretation of the chosen repertoire. So the repertoire referring to the music that you're performing, and stylistic interpretation means what are the things that when you listen to that type of music you would characteristically hear in them. For example, the characteristics or the stylistic characteristics of, say, a jazz piece of music are very different to the characteristics of, say, a heavy metal screamo piece of music. So, who would like to chip in about stylistic interpretation? Let me put it into context. So let's say you've never sung a song from musical theatre before, and you sing lots of rock songs, and then all of a sudden you jump in and you do something from, say, I don't know, Mary Poppins or something like that. What would that person need to do in order to really understand the stylistic features of that piece of music?
Well, I would say if you're doing a song from Mary Poppins, maybe start at the beginning and watch the movie, listen to the music, and listen really, really carefully. How do they sing that gives it that characteristic? So things like, sometimes she does like speak singing, like the over pronunciation of the words, like making it really resonant and beautiful, and all those little connections that puts the song in context with the style.
Right.
As well.
So to use that example, would they, when they sing in that style, are they really forcing the voice, or is everything very nice and neat and tidy?
Neat, very nice and extremely effortless.
Right.
Sometimes, let's say a heavy metal song, it can feel when you listen to it like the voice is really straining and it's really hard to listen to. But with musical theatre, it's a character that's singing about their position in their life right now, and it's easy. They're singing and it's beautiful, lights, limitless, really lyrical, and the way that you can hear every single word they're saying.
Right.
So they really need to watch their intonation, that it's extremely clear.
So who would you expect to do better? Let's say someone that does musical theatre all the time, are they likely to do better than someone that's doing it for the very first time?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For what reasons?
I think probably the particular style of singing, as Mr. Gerardis has touched on, that particular phrasing.
Yes.
I mean, particularly in musical theatre, it's all about telling the story of a character within a particular part of a plot line.
Yep.
Whereas someone who's a rock singer, I suppose, is more focusing on that storytelling about an emotive experience. And because of that, it becomes less about the phrasing and the story and more about the emotions felt by the singer.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you have a particular style that you're comfortable with and you've performed for a long time, I don't think it's a time to break the mold, especially to go that far away from your style from, say, grunge rock to something like musical theatre is a massive jump.
So in the context of getting ready for the HSC, if you're very close to the HSC, then we would recommend probably not changing styles. But if you're in year 9 or year 10 and you've got plenty of time and you want to develop that style, then by all means, it would be an ideal opportunity to do that.
Can I give another example?
Please, yeah.
For piano players, what happens all the time, most piano players learn classically.
Yes.
And then they want to try a jazz piece, which I think is fantastic. But how you learn classical style of piano is totally different to how you play a jazz piece of music, because jazz has a particular sense of timing, which you are not taught in classical. Classical, you read absolutely everything that's on the page.
Very strict.
It's very strict. While in jazz music, it has it could have a particular swing rhythm to it that you need to put into your playing, and a lot of students find that challenging.
Yep.
And my advice to them is to listen to lots and lots and lots of jazz music to get an understanding of style.
So you really need to immerse yourself in that style to get an understanding of it.
To really get an understanding of it, because it's a whole rhythmic thing, which is not even there on the page.
Yes.
So to help you understand the style.
So is it like when you listen to an artist and you love that artist and you listen to like all of their albums and you know everything about that style, when you go and sing something like that, you're more likely to be in the style of that artist than if you've only heard one song and you're just having a crack at it.
Yes.
That's not to say you can't learn it.
Yeah.
But if you have the time, say if you're a younger student, certainly, but you need to, like you said, immerse yourself in listening to all those different types of styles.
And give it a go. Like, just anticipate that the first one might not go great. Your first jazz piece, if you've only been playing classical, might not go great. But the more you practice, the more you try different rhythms, different songs, it will get better as you try.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be that you try once and it's no good and give up. If you like that style, definitely keep at it if you really want to pursue something like that.
Yep.
So when we look at the dot points here, it demonstrates perceptive stylistic understanding through performing repertoire using articulation, dynamics, and expressive techniques. The way I like to, for the word perceptive, the way I like to explain it is, imagine you've got someone who's played netball from the age of 5 and they're now 15 or so and they've been playing for 10 years, and then you get someone that's just playing netball for the very first time and they've just turned 15. The difference is going to be quite dramatic in terms of the person that's played it for basically all their life. They're going to be able to move and anticipate where things are going to happen. They're going to be able to do things that the other person has got no idea is about to happen, and they've somehow anticipated it. But what's really happened is because of their level of development, they have a better perceptive understanding of the game of netball. And it's the same for musicians as well.
Yep.
That if you've grown up playing rock music, the likelihood is that you're going to have a better understanding of those stylistic features than someone that's grown up doing classical music.
Yep.
And so for the purposes of this type of marking criteria, you need to demonstrate perceptive stylistic understanding. So just because you do a classical song and you sing it in tune doesn't mean that you're adding all of the articulation and dynamics and expressive techniques that a classical song requires. So that's something that they're looking for to get you up into that higher bracket.
Can we just go over dynamics and expressive techniques?
Sure.
Sir, so when we talk about dynamic,
Yeah.
so that's a really important concept that I feel like sometimes can get forgotten a little bit.
Yeah.
Dynamics, it just means volume, but it means changes in volume that's linked to moments in the song.
Yeah.
So when you choose a song, no matter what instrument, singing, guitar, piano, you have to look at your piece and think, okay, where is the soft parts and when does that lead to the bigger, louder part? And even though it might feel loud, soft, you're building the song to give it emotion, which then links to the style.
Yep.
Because you want your song to go somewhere.
Yep.
So if your song if you start your song at 100%, where are you going to go for the rest of the piece? You need to start it at about 70 or 80 and build from there.
Yes.
And that really comes through with the dynamics.
Yep.
And that will help facilitate it with your crescendos and decrescendos and things like that.
Yep.
So to get a high mark, that really needs to be part of your piece. And they're very dramatic dynamic changes. Don't keep them as subtle, really make them very obvious what you're doing. Yeah.
I remember one time we were marking someone who played the bagpipes. Now, changing dynamics on bagpipes is it's not part of the instrument, it's kind of on or off, which means it's either loud or it's not playing. And one of the problems that we had was that marking it, I can't remember the mark that we ended up giving it, but it was very difficult to put it up into the A bracket because over here you're showing a perceptive level of use of dynamics. And on that instrument, for that particular song, there wasn't that level of huge variety in dynamics, and so it kind of stopped it from getting up into that higher bracket. So to put it into context, if you're playing a song that doesn't feature dynamics, it's well worthwhile adding them in so that it gives you the opportunity to be up at that level there.
So you can change the song.
You can change the song to show any of these.
It doesn't have to be, oh, this is the way the song is, that's what I have to do.
No.
You can change it up all you want.
Because that will lead into, what's the
next one?
Is it personal expression?
A sense of musical expression and sensitivity to the chosen repertoire.
Okay, and that's when the performer's personal, how they their personal expression, how they identify with the music. That's where that would come in there.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the word interpretation feeds into that as well. Obviously, interpretations are largely personal, so you're going to interpret a piece of music different to maybe everyone else in your class, and that needs to be shown through the way that you present that piece.
And through what we said before, dynamics and expressive techniques, you often hear it, especially in younger students, when they sing about a love song, and it's sure, they might have a loud and a soft in there, but it's not
in tune.
It's in tune, but there's no sense of them understanding the story. And the emotions behind. They haven't connected with the song. Even piano players, the same. You can play a classical piece technically brilliantly, but if there is no connection with the music, where you develop louds and softs throughout it.
You take us on a journey of the music.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And sometimes this well-developed sense of personal expression comes back to that idea that often the people that are at that level of playing that style of music, they're very familiar with it, so they understand the little intricacies that happen. And this also explains why there are some singers that sing in a particular style for basically their career, and they don't really switch out of that. So someone like Michael Bublé has got a very warm voice. It's very, how would you describe it, rounded, nicely controlled and so on, but it's a delicate voice. It's not one that's got a lot of growl or grunting behind it. And all of the music that he tends to sing fits that style quite nicely. You probably wouldn't hear him singing some heavy metal song because his voice doesn't suit that. And if you compare that with someone like a hard rock or metal singer like, I don't know, Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, you probably wouldn't hear him singing a jazz song and do a really good job of it because they're completely different types of personal expression and importantly is what's that stylistic feature that we come back to again.
With the song, just because I know this sometimes comes up, but you were saying with Singleton, a young girl gets up there and sings songs about love and they can't connect to it because maybe they've never been in love. So sometimes what singers have to do, they have to be actors and they have to fake it till they make it. They have to look at the lyrics and understand what the song is saying. And if they can't personally connect to it, they have to think, well, what would it be like to be in this situation? Like I'm in love or I've had a breakup or something terrible has happened. And even if that hasn't happened to them, they need to, in their own way, connect and express it. Even if it's fake, they have to put it on to make us feel like they're taking us on a journey. So we sometimes say to them, can you imagine what it would feel like to do that? Or maybe you've watched a movie or read a book that has also happened, and how did you feel reading about that character?
So you don't have to go and have a huge breakup just to sing an emotional song, but you could take the time to imagine what it would feel like to go through that process.
And singers are like actors. They're taking us on a story, and it depends on how well they do it to how well we believe them.
Of course, and think of the people you know as human resources as well. And if you know someone who's had that kind of experience, have a chat to them and they can walk you through the process of what it felt like to go through a major breakup or to lose a very close loved one, and you can kind of feed off that emotional intensity and use that in your piece.
And it's not just for singers, it's for instrumentalists as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that then leads us on to the last point of the assessment criteria, and that is demonstration of solo and or ensemble techniques. And the descriptor here says demonstrates a highly developed understanding of solo and ensemble techniques, including understanding of the role of the soloist or the ensemble member, communication with the accompanist if there's one there, and really importantly, issues of balance. So the one that we see the most in this example is where you're using a backing track, where that would be your ensemble, and the backing track is so loud that we can't hear you in your role as the soloist, which shows that a lack of understanding of ensemble technique. So can we maybe talk a little bit about this? So Miss, can we start with you? Let's say you're playing the piano, you've got a right hand melody and you've got a left hand accompaniment. What are some of the things that can happen?
So one of the biggest issues that comes up is often that the right hand playing the melody will often get lost in the dynamics with the left hand.
Yeah.
Sometimes the left hand takes on the melody and it needs to come out more. That melody still needs to ring through and the right hand needs to get softer, and often that gets lost as well.
And this is on the one instrument, so it's not like that's just one instrument, but you still have layers there.
You still have layers there, and those so that melody, no matter where it is, has to be predominant all the way through.
Right.
With it.
And so what about, maybe we'll ask Mr. Farlow, if you're a guitarist and then you're accompanying a singer and you're strumming the chords and then it's your solo and you don't change the volume and it stays the same or lower, what are some of the things that might be a problem there?
Well, I mean, especially if you're playing a solo as a guitarist and you're accompanying a vocalist, you're obviously going to lose the focus of your audience. The reason you play a solo, well, one of all is to showcase your technical ability, but your job as a musician is to maintain the interest of the audience. So if you keep that consistent level where you're merely being an accompaniment to the singer, and obviously your volume is to accommodate that so the singer can be heard, and it doesn't change to the solo, well, you're not giving yourself an appropriate avenue really to express your ability and maintain that audience engagement. So that opportunity is completely lost.
And at that point, the role is for you to shine, so you turn the solo up.
That's right. Yeah.
But then, highly developed demonstration of solo ensemble techniques would mean that you also come down. And it would also show that you show differences. So as the song's building, you might come up in volume as well and you might come down with it as well. So here's one of the common problems. Sometimes the backing tracks don't have changes in volume or changes in dynamics, which means that you either have to put them in or as the soloist you've got to show that you're moving up and down where the song requires it. But probably a better backing track has got some highs and lows in there so that you can follow something.
Another good thing to do if you're using a backing track is to come to the sound system in the school in MM1 and sing the whole thing through and know, okay, if in the chorus it's going to be really loud, I can't start my intro really loud because it's going to be way too loud when it comes around. So you need to understand your backing track and know, well, I need to start it soft because it's going to get louder. You need to be able to balance yourself out according to the loudest point in your backing track, because that's the same every single time. So you need to be able to follow that, and when your backing track gets louder, you need to get louder. You can't let your backing track overwhelm you. So you need to listen to it really carefully and know when to start it and when to get louder and softer with it.
So then we've covered all of the main, or the four main areas: demonstration of technical skills, stylistic interpretation of the chosen repertoire, sense of musical expression and sensitivity to the chosen repertoire, and also demonstration of solo and ensemble techniques. And what ends up happening is that when you're being marked, depending on how well you hit all of those four areas, you'll land in that particular box. And then the question is, are you just doing them, in which case they might give you, say, 17, or are you absolutely nailing it, in which case they'd give you 20, or anything in between. So you might find that you're really good at the technique, you're really good at the interpretation, you're really good at the expression, but maybe you're not balancing as well, and that might mean that you don't get the higher complimentary marks that are available. Similarly, if you find that your piece isn't allowing you enough scope for any of these four areas, you need to decide whether that's the best piece for you or whether you can add some stuff in there to allow you to do that. Is there anything else that we need to add before we finish up?
I think the number one thing for any player, any instrument, is confidence. Is going there, knowing your song, knowing that you've practiced it, and just do your best. The confidence sometimes overrides everything. If you get in there and you know it but you're scared, that will affect you. But if you go in there confident, that's really the main thing.
So what happens if you make a mistake?
You keep going. You keep going. A mistake is not going to matter. One mistake is not going to matter at all. If obviously it's just a slip up, it's not going to affect your mark that much. If you're slipping up all the time and you obviously have no control over your instrument,
Yep.
well then yes,
That's
it's gonna,
different.
That's
Yes.
different. But no, it's
What if you have 2 or 3 slip-ups, but it's still at that top level and still showing all of those? Would you still get in that top bracket?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, girls, we hope this helps. And if you've got any questions, please make sure you come and see us. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, girls.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.